The world is moving away from fossil fuels, entering an era where sustainable energy solutions are of utmost importance. So starting from tomorrow, the Africa Oil Week and Green Energy Africa Summits are poised to take centre stage. These two events will provide a platform for exploring the future of Africa's energy landscape. Joining me now for more on this is Eve Harper from the Hyve Group Portfolio. She's a director there. Thank you so much for your time, Eve. We do appreciate it. This is a really important summit, really important discussions that are going to be had, given where we are supposed to be heading in Africa, especially when it comes to being a lot more greener and a lot more cognizant of how we treat our world, our environments and our climates. I'm sure that's going to be top of agenda.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me and for that introduction. And you're absolutely right. And first, I just want to say how incredibly excited we are to be returning to Cape Town for what will be our 29th Africa Oil Week, which is the leading event for driving investment into Africa's oil and gas sector. And alongside our sister conference, Green Energy Africa, taking place over the Tuesday and Wednesday this week. And exactly, this year's theme is actually maximising Africa's natural resources in the global energy transition, which looks at the pressures, but also critically the opportunities for the continent when it comes to reaching carbon neutrality. That's not about shying away from the abundant resources, but it's about how we create a roadmap that ensures responsible development of the Africa's oil and gas sector, whilst critically tapping into its renewable energy potential as well.
Certainly, and just looking at what's currently happening, for example, Nigeria is Africa's biggest oil producer, and Nigeria is struggling significantly with electricity supply. And here in South Africa, we also have major electricity issues being subjected to what we've now dubbed load shedding. But this is also probably something that's going to be looked at because of something you just mentioned, that the African continent has so many resources. And are we really tapping into that? Are we really looking at how we can use our resources to deal with our problems, one being the biggest of electricity supply?
Well, I mean, that's exactly right. And I think that's why forums and events like Africa Oil Week and Green Energy Africa Summit are so important. Only really when we bring all the key players together, all the key stakeholders involved in Africa's oil and gas and energy sectors, are we able to address these kind of critical issues. So it's looking exactly right from the perspective of ministries of oil, gas, energy, from those operators and the power producers, service companies, that whole ecosystem of players that are involved in whether that's shaping policy, forming partnerships, really addressing the important issues here on how we, yes, absolutely address the transition and ensure that Africa is playing an active role in that, but also what role and what are the immediate needs of today, and how do we responsibly develop the resources that exist here today to make sure that we are in line with that, essentially. So I think, that's what we're really looking forward to this week. It's a discussion with those major players in the oil and gas sector, but also those frontier markets when it comes to renewable energy, and how we really open that dialogue up and really find solutions between the public and the private sector together.
Exactly, because if we have these resources, I mean, we always say here in South Africa, why aren't we capitalizing on the sun, for example, on solar? Because you can't really steal solar, and there can't be really much corruption with how much sun comes out. But I just want to ask you in terms of, I know the summits are only set to take place from tomorrow and this week, but are you getting a sense of an appetite for further investment onto the African continent, given the natural resources and the abundance thereof? Because we do know that there are many challenges on this continent, but I'm wondering if there is an appetite for there to be further investment, given the natural resources that we have.
There is huge appetite, and we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if there wasn't, and we see such a significant opportunity, and we know some of these opportunities are already being realised at the moment. But it's only through understanding how we can create the right regulatory environments, how we can develop the right policy, how can we ensure these projects and opportunities really benefit the communities they're in, are we able to kind of really tap into that potential? So absolutely, there is investment appetite. It's how we ensure that those projects can be realised, how we create the right environment, how the public and private sector engagement can really thrive to kind of enable the sector to move forward in that way. So yes, absolutely, there is appetite, and it's all about having a conversation to make sure that that investment has the right impact, has the positive impact for the countries and the continent as a whole.
Exactly. And speaking about the right kind of impact and how these communities and countries on the African continent can benefit, many would argue that Africa always seems to be on the back foot, despite the fact that we have so many resources on this continent and so much potential. Will the conversation also be about how to make sure that, the resources that we have benefit these communities, but also that there is access and equality when it comes to these resources? Because if you look at what's happening in South Africa at the moment, I mean, half of the time we don't have constant electricity supply. If you look at what's happening in Nigeria, and I'm just mentioning these two countries, but there are a number of other countries on the continent that are struggling when it comes to these resources, yet we have an abundance of them. So how do we make sure that Africa is number one, given that we are the ones with these natural resources?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. And this year's theme is about advocating for Africa. It's about exactly that. It's like, how do we ensure equitable, fair access at a time that's when, as you say, so many communities, so many people are facing a time without that access, without electricity. Like, how do we ensure that what countries are doing, what governments are doing, really benefits the people here? So, as I say, that's exactly kind of the frame in which this year's conference is set. And we're really looking forward to having those conversations and helping to drive meaningful change for communities here.
Absolutely. And just lastly, Eve, maybe just tell us how long these summits are going to be taking place for, and if anybody wants to participate or, find out more about what's going to be discussed, and maybe just tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. So it starts, our official opening is on Tuesday, where we will have His Excellency, the Deputy President of South Africa, coming to officiate and delivering his perspective on South Africa's position in the energy transition and the opportunities ahead. And the event runs until Friday. So it's not too late to attend and be part of those discussions. We're happening at the CTICC2. You can find out on our website, Africa Oil Week and Green Energy Africa Summit, more details around the agenda, but absolutely taking place starting from Tuesday this week all the way until Friday.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, and we wish you all the best. That was Hyve Group Portfolio Director Eve Harper speaking to us about Africa Oil Week.